Queen Zilaria sat upon her throne, her tall figure outlined against the shimmering crystal walls of Thera's grand palace. The violet light of the twin moons fell across the city like liquid silver, and the spires of the palace seemed to reach endlessly into the sky. She looked down upon her court with the calm, unyielding gaze of someone who had faced countless challenges and had always emerged victorious. The alien race of Zithera had long been known for its beauty, intelligence, and Zilaria was the embodiment of all of them. She was unmatched in power, unmatched in wisdom, and unmatched in her refusal to yield to any marriage proposal. No matter who came from across the galaxy, emperors, warlords, princes, or champions, she had refused them all. For centuries, her refusals had become legend. Some said she feared losing her independence. Others whispered that she did not trust anyone to share the throne with her. Her advisors had long stopped arguing with her about marriage, knowing well that she would not bend. The palace halls echoed with her authority, yet her own heart remained untouched by love. To many, she was the perfect queen, strong, brilliant, and untouchable. But beneath the calm exterior there was curiosity, a faint, hidden longing buried deep under layers of duty and pride. On this particular day, Zilaria was reviewing reports of incoming visitors from distant stars. Most of the messages were routine. Trade offers, exploration proposals, or messages from allied systems. Then a single transmission stood out. It was from a human envoy, a species recently venturing into interstellar politics. Humans were young, unpredictable, and largely unknown to the Zytherans, a fact that intrigued Zilaria. She read the message carefully. The human captain named Arik Vance had arrived with a delegation seeking diplomatic relations and trade agreements. Zilaria's advisors were skeptical. "Your Majesty," one of them said, "humans are weak. Their technology is inferior and their societies are young. We should treat this as a minor visit, nothing more." Zilaria did not respond immediately. She had learned to measure her reactions carefully. The thought of meeting a human sparked an unexpected interest. For centuries, she had seen countless species attempt to impress her with gifts, flattery, and demonstrations of power. None had succeeded. Could this human, so untested in the ways of the galaxy, be different? The following day, the human delegation landed on Zithera. Their ship was small compared to the massive vessels of alien empires, sleek and silver with lights flickering across its surface. When the hatch opened, Captain Arik Vance stepped forward. He was human, tall and broad-shouldered, with dark hair and eyes that seemed to hold a spark of curiosity. Unlike the alien dignitaries who had visited Scythera before, he did not bow excessively or speak with overly formal language. He moved with confidence, yet without arrogance. Zilaria observed him from a distance, noting his posture, the way he looked at the palace, the way he acknowledged the alien guards. There was something raw and unusual about him. He carried no airs, no pretension. It was a kind of honesty she had not seen in any other being. The first meeting took place in the central hall of the palace. The walls were adorned with shifting crystal patterns that reflected light in ever-changing colors. Zilaria sat on her throne, silent and imposing, while Arik stepped forward, bowing lightly but not submissively. "Queen Zilaria," he said, his voice steady, "it is an honor to be here on Zithera. I hope our visit can bring friendship and understanding between our people." The court murmured. His words were simple, yet respectful. Unlike others, he did not attempt to flatter her unnecessarily. Zilaria inclined her head slightly, a gesture of acknowledgement. "I have heard of humans," she said, her voice clear and melodic. "You are young and ambitious, yet untested in the ways of the galaxy. Why should Zithera trust you?" Arik smiled faintly. "Because we are willing to learn, and we value honesty and courage. We cannot match you in power yet, but we can offer creativity, loyalty, and ideas." Zilaria found herself studying him more closely. He was not boastful, nor was he naive. there was a subtle confidence in his demeanor, a quality that spoke of adaptability and intelligence. She had never met a being like this, one who seemed unafraid yet respectful, ordinary yet extraordinary. Over the following days, Eric and his team were given permission to explore Zythera under strict supervision. They walked through crystal markets, studied alien technologies, and observed the complex political structures of the Zytheran court. Eric asked questions, not out of curiosity alone, but out of genuine interest in understanding the world around him. He interacted with citizens, listened to their concerns, and offered practical solutions for everyday problems. Zyleria watched all of this from her private chambers. She had advisors monitoring every movement, reporting back the human captain's actions. Yet she often ignored their commentary, focusing instead on the subtle qualities that no report could capture. His quick thinking, his adaptability, his compassion. One afternoon, she decided to test him herself. She arranged a series of challenges in the palace gardens, mazes of crystal hedges, puzzles embedded in light patterns, and physical obstacles designed to test intellect and courage. Other alien nobles had failed some of these trials in the past, yet Eric navigated them with surprising ingenuity. He solved the puzzles, avoided traps, and even rescued a small group of native creatures caught in the maze. Zyleria was impressed. Not because he succeeded, she had seen beings succeeded before, but because of how he succeeded. He did not rely on brute force, nor on cunning alone. He observed, thought, adapted, and acted with courage and empathy. She had never seen a human handle challenges in such a balanced way. Rumors of his exploits spread through the palace quickly. Some advisors whispered of his boldness and skill, while others warned the queen that a human could not survive the complexities of Zytheran society. Zyleria dismissed their concerns, intrigued instead by the undeniable spark she felt whenever he was near. In private, she found herself considering possibilities she had long forbidden herself to imagine. Could it be that the being she had refused to marry for centuries might finally appear? Not an alien, not a ruler, not a warrior, but a human? She had no answers yet. Only questions, and questions were dangerous for a queen who prided herself on control. Meanwhile, Arik was unaware of the depth of her observation. To him, she was a formidable ruler, elegant and intelligent, with a presence that demanded respect. He approached her not with flattery but with honesty, and slowly began to understand the weight of her responsibility. The more he learned, the more he admired her, not just as a queen, but as a being of extraordinary depth and strength. As the twin moons rose over Zythera, casting violet shadows across the palace, Zyleria found herself standing at the balcony, watching the human delegation move through the gardens below. She felt an unfamiliar pull, a mixture of curiosity, admiration, and something else she could not yet name. For centuries, she had remained untouched by love, untouched by fascination. But now, a new force stirred within her, a force that neither power nor logic could suppress. And in that moment, Zyleria realized that for the first time in her long life, she was truly interested in one being above all others. The days on Zythera passed with a rhythm that was at once mesmerizing and strict. Captain Eric Vance continued his exploration of the alien world, and with each passing moment he impressed the citizens, scholars, and even the guards who had been skeptical of humans. Yet nothing drew the attention of the court more than his continued interactions with Queen Zyleria. Zyleria had begun to notice subtle differences in how she regarded him, compared to any previous visitor. She could not dismiss him as she did with others. He was clever, yes, but also unexpectedly kind. When he walked among the Zytheran citizens, he listened to their concerns without condescension. He asked questions, genuinely curious about their lives and the workings of their world. For a species that valued tradition and hierarchy above all, this was unusual and refreshing. One morning, the queen invited him to the great library, a hall filled with floating crystalline shelves, each containing knowledge from across Zythera's history. Eric's eyes widened at the sheer scale of it, and he moved slowly, reverently. "You seem fascinated," Xylaria remarked, her voice echoing slightly in the chamber. "I am," Eric said. "Your people have created something extraordinary. I have never seen knowledge preserved like this. It's alive." Xylaria smiled faintly. Few visitors ever appreciated the library's depth. Most glanced at the shelves and made polite remarks before seeking her attention elsewhere. But Eric lingered, reading inscriptions and analyzing diagrams of Zetheran technology, asking insightful questions that reflected an understanding beyond his species' usual capabilities.
"You think like a strategist," Xylaria observed, watching him closely.
"Most humans rely on luck or chance, not planning." Eric shrugged. "We adapt. Sometimes the situation demands quick thinking rather than tradition. But I do admire planning when it's done well." The conversation continued as they moved through the library. Xylaria began to test him, asking questions about politics, leadership, and moral dilemmas. Eric answered honestly, often challenging her assumptions. She had grown accustomed to advisors who flattered her, who never dared contradict or question her decisions. Eric, however, did so politely yet firmly. He did not fear her, and that shocked her more than she expected. Outside, the palace gardens shimmered under the light of Zethera's twin moons. Xylaria suggested a walk, and Eric followed. The gardens were vast, with towering crystal flora that emitted soft light and floating water streams that defied gravity. Here, the rigid court politics felt distant, almost irrelevant. "You have a rare mind," Xylaria said, "and a rare heart."
"I do not know if anyone like you has ever existed in my lifetime." Eric paused, surprised by the intensity of her words.
"I thank you, Your Majesty. That means more than you might know." They walked in silence for a moment, the only sound being the hum of distant crystal machinery and the soft rustle of alien plants. For the first time, Xylaria found herself speaking without restraint. She told him of her fears, her doubts about trusting others, and the centuries of offers she had refused. She spoke of the loneliness of ruling a planet alone, of the burden that no advisor could truly understand. Eric listened quietly, absorbing her words. "You do not need to carry it alone," he said softly. "Even someone from another world can stand with you, if you let them." Xylaria considered his statement carefully. She had spent lifetimes learning to trust only herself. To consider letting someone else share her burdens was almost unthinkable. Yet the sincerity in Arik's voice made her heart stir in ways she had never felt before. Back in the palace, whispers of Arik's growing influence began to circulate among the court. Some nobles admired his courage and intellect, while others feared it. One advisor, Talix, approached the queen privately. "Your Majesty, this human may charm you, but he is still an outsider. His species cannot survive Zetheran politics, and his presence may encourage factions to challenge your authority." Xylaria's expression was unreadable. "And yet," she said calmly, "he has not sought power. He has not plotted. He acts with integrity, unlike many who serve me." Talix hesitated, sensing that his words carried little weight against the queen's resolve. Xylaria's mind was already elsewhere, replaying moments with Eric. The way he smiled at her questions, the way he spoke without fear, the way he moved through the gardens with curiosity and respect. A week later, Xylaria decided to challenge him further. She arranged a series of trials designed to test intellect, courage, and morality. The first was a puzzle involving shifting crystal structures that required both logic and creativity. The second was a simulated conflict scenario, where he had to make choices affecting the lives of Zetheran citizens. The third tested his ability to lead and make quick decisions in dangerous circumstances. Eric approached each challenge with a mixture of careful thought and instinctive action. He solved the crystal puzzle by observing patterns others might overlook. He navigated the simulated conflict by considering both strategic outcomes and ethical consequences. In the final trial, he he displayed a calm decisiveness that saved virtual lives while achieving objectives, impressing the observing council. Silaria watched him with a sense of wonder she had not expected to feel. No alien she had ever encountered combined intelligence, courage, and compassion in the way this human did. Even her most trusted generals, her fiercest allies, had never approached this level of balance. She found herself leaning closer during the trials, silently urging him forward, feeling a thrill she could not name. That evening, Silaria called Eric to a private audience. The palace lights were soft, casting gentle reflections on the crystal walls. She spoke frankly, her usual regal composure softened by curiosity and something more personal. "You have impressed me," she said. "Not with power nor with flattery, but with qualities I thought rare in any species. Courage, compassion, intellect, all in balance. I did not expect to see this from a human." Eric inclined his head, understanding the weight of her words. "Your Majesty, I only acted as anyone should, honestly and with respect. I did not expect praise." She studied him, seeing the sincerity in his eyes. For the first time, she felt a spark of something she could not control, a fascination, a pull toward a being who challenged her in ways no one else ever had. Her advisors could have seen her curiosity as a weakness, but she ignored them. Silaria had long ago learned to trust her own judgment above all. In the days that followed, Auric continued to explore Zephyra, often accompanied by Silaria herself. They debated philosophies, discussed leadership, and even engaged in friendly competitions of logic and strategy. He showed her the value of perspective from another species, and she taught him the depth of Zitharan culture. Their bond deepened, rooted not in politics or duty, but in mutual respect and growing admiration. Meanwhile, subtle tensions grew within the court. Some nobles feared the queen's fascination with the human, questioning the wisdom of letting an outsider gain influence. Whispered rumors spread of plots and alliances forming against him. Yet Silaria remained resolute. She could feel the stirrings of history unfolding before her eyes, a shift in the familiar order of Zephyra. For Silaria, the truth was undeniable. She had refused every marriage for centuries, yet this human had captured her attention in ways that no other could. His honesty, courage, intelligence, and kindness combined to create a force she could neither ignore nor suppress. He was unpredictable, yes, but in that unpredictability lay a spark of life and vitality that she had long been denied. And for Auric, the realization was equally profound. He admired her strength, intelligence, and wisdom. He understood the weight of her responsibilities, yet he found ways to stand beside her, not as a servant or diplomat, but as a partner in curiosity, strategy, and understanding. As the twin moons rose once more over Zithara, casting long violet shadows across the city, Silaria and Eric stood together in the palace gardens. Neither spoke, yet both understood the quiet thrill of connection growing between them. It was a bond forged not by duty, not by obligation, but by mutual respect, courage, and the spark of something neither had anticipated, but both felt deeply. In that moment, Silaria realized that for the first time she was seeing a future that included someone else, not as a companion by force or tradition, but as an equal, a partner, and perhaps, if she dared to admit it, something more. The city slept under the violet skies, but in the palace, a subtle shift had begun. The unyielding queen who had refused every marriage for centuries was beginning to see the possibility of change, and the human who had entered her world with honesty and courage was proving, day by day, that even a queen's heart could be moved in ways the universe itself might never predict. The palace of Zephyra, usually a place of beauty and order, felt different that night. Shadows moved in corners where light should have dominated, and the quiet hum of the crystal walls seemed heavier, almost tense. Captain Eric Vance, unaware of the danger growing around him, had been invited to a private council meeting to discuss trade negotiations with nearby star systems. He was eager to learn, to contribute, and to understand the inner workings of Zithran politics. Meanwhile, Queen Xylaria sensed a disturbance. Though she had trusted Eric implicitly, she could feel subtle signs of unease from her court. Advisors whispered behind closed doors, and certain nobles, envious of the human's rising influence, were growing bold in their opposition. Some sought only to undermine him, while others quietly plotted to remove him entirely. Xylaria had faced treachery before, but never within the heart of her palace. The council chamber was cold, a massive room with walls of dark crystal reflecting faint violet light. Eric entered, polite and cautious, bowing slightly to the queen as he always did. He noticed the unusual tension immediately. Even the council members seemed stiff and distracted. "Your Majesty," said Talix, the same advisor who had previously warned her about the human, "we must discuss the recent incidents involving Captain Vance. Some of our allies question his influence in the palace. His presence, it disrupts balance." Eric frowned. "I mean no disrespect," he said calmly. "I am here to observe, learn, and help wherever I can. I do not seek influence or power." Talix's eyes narrowed. "Words are easy, Captain. Actions matter. And your actions have drawn attention that could weaken the throne." Before Xylaria could respond, a loud alarm rang through the palace. Crystal walls vibrated as security drones swarmed. The council erupted into chaos. Messages flashed on the palace monitors. An attempted coup had been reported in a remote district of the city. Rebels were claiming that Eric had conspired to overthrow the queen. Eric's heart sank. He had done nothing to provoke this, yet the evidence had been fabricated carefully. He realized immediately that someone within the court had orchestrated this, using his growing reputation against him. "Eric, stay calm," Xylaria said, stepping closer. Her voice was steady, but there was a sharp edge beneath the calm. "This is a test of your character, and of mine. Trust me, we will get through this." Despite her reassurance, the situation worsened. Palace guards, normally loyal to the queen, hesitated. Some had been influenced by the conspirators, convinced that the human captain posed a threat. Eric was arrested quietly and escorted to the dungeons beneath the palace, a labyrinth of crystal corridors designed to contain even the most dangerous criminals. Xylaria watched from her private chamber as he was taken away. She felt a surge of anger she had not experienced in centuries. This was not a test of diplomacy or courage, it was betrayal. And the betrayal came from those who had sworn loyalty to her. In the dungeons, Eric assessed his situation. The corridors were narrow, lined with reflective crystal panels that made navigation difficult. The guards were skilled, but he noticed patterns in their patrols. Using his knowledge of strategy and observation, he began to plan an escape. He also realized that fleeing without the queen's support could end badly for both him and the stability of the palace. He needed her help, but first he had to survive long enough to reach it. Meanwhile, Xylaria mobilized her personal guard, loyal only to her and her judgment. She moved through secret passages she had long kept hidden, weaving between the palace towers, ignoring the whispers of advisors who warned her not to act recklessly. Her mind was focused solely on Arik, the human who had won her attention and trust in ways no alien had ever done. Back in the dungeons, Arik spotted a small panel near the floor, likely for maintenance. Using a sharp crystal shard he found nearby, he began working to pry it open. It was slow and delicate work. One wrong move and the alarm systems would trigger, alerting more guards. But he persisted, drawing on human ingenuity and the lessons he had learned during his brief time on Zethera. Xylaria reached the dungeons through a concealed tunnel, bypassing the main security systems entirely. Her presence went unnoticed by most of the guards, but she did not hesitate to use her authority and the palace's defense mechanisms to incapacitate those who discovered her. She was graceful and lethal, a combination of strategy and raw power. As she descended into the deepest level, she found Eric working on the panel. Their eyes met, and for a moment, words were unnecessary. Xyleria extended her hand, and together they slipped through the maintenance corridor into a hidden part of the palace, far from the eyes of conspirators. They moved quickly, navigating the labyrinthine palace passages, emerging onto the rooftops where the violet light of the moons bathed the city. From above, the scale of the palace and the surrounding city was breathtaking. Crystal towers sparkled like jewels, but the beauty did not mask the danger that lingered below. Rebel ships, sent by rival factions and waiting for the coup to succeed, hovered on the edges of the city.
Arik quickly assessed the situation.
They expect us to run in panic, he said quietly.
We need to think strategically, use the environment to our advantage. We can turn their own forces against them. Xyleria smiled faintly. His calmness and clarity under pressure amazed her. Lead the way, human. I trust your judgment. Using anti-gravity skimmers, they navigated the rooftops, drawing enemy forces into traps and exploiting the city's defenses. Arik coordinated with the Queen's loyalists, directing drones and automated defense systems to disable the intruders. His quick thinking and ingenuity turned what could have been a disaster into a stunning victory. Rebel ships were disabled, conspirators were exposed, and the city remained safe. After the chaos settled, they returned to the palace. Their partnership solidified not just by trust, but by shared experience and courage. But Xyleria watched Arik, realizing that his actions had proven something beyond intelligence or bravery. They had proven loyalty, honor, and the ability to act decisively under pressure. In the quiet aftermath, she took him aside. "You have saved more than just yourself today, Arik," she said. "You have preserved the throne, the city, and perhaps even the future of Zythera. No alien I have ever known could have done what you did." Arik shook his head modestly. "I only acted with what I knew. Your leadership gave me the opportunity. I could not have done it alone." Xyleria studied him, seeing the truth in his words. For centuries, she had ruled alone, trusting few and fearing betrayal. Yet here was a human, a being from another world entirely, who had proven not only his courage, but his ability to think, act, and protect. She felt something stir in her chest, an emotion that went beyond admiration, beyond trust. It was respect, yes, but also something deeper, something she had long denied herself. Over the following days, the conspirators were apprehended, their plans dismantled, and their influence eliminated. The court was shaken, but Xyleria's authority was unchallenged, and yet she could not ignore the bond that had formed between herself and the human who had saved her city. Arik's presence had changed the palace, not just in actions, but in atmosphere. His honesty, courage, and ingenuity had earned him respect, and even some skeptics began to acknowledge his contributions. But more importantly, he had touched Xyleria in ways no one else ever had. One evening, as they stood together overlooking the violet-lit city from the highest tower, Xyleria spoke quietly. "For centuries, I have refused every offer, every union, because I trusted no one. But you have proven yourself in ways I did not think possible. I do not know what the future holds, but I know that I trust you." Arik looked at her, understanding the weight of her words. "I do not take that lightly, Your Majesty. I will continue to earn your trust every day." For a long moment they simply looked at the city, the moons reflected in the crystal towers, knowing that they had faced danger together and emerged stronger. The bond between human and queen was no longer theoretical. It had been tested, proven, and strengthened by fire. The night air carried the faint hum of the palace's defenses, a reminder that even in safety, vigilance was required. But for Xyleria and Arik, a new understanding had been forged. It was a bond of trust, courage, and respect. And as the violet moons rose higher, the unyielding queen felt, for the first time in centuries, the possibility of change, of connection, and perhaps of something more. The city of Zythera shone brighter than ever under the twin moons. The violet light reflected on the crystal towers, creating patterns that danced like rivers of liquid silver. The attempted coup had been crushed, the conspirators exposed, and the palace restored to order. Yet for Queen Xylaria and for Captain Eric Vance, life within the palace walls would never be the same. The queen had spent countless years ruling alone, her heart closed to any form of companionship. Her decisions had always been guided by reason, by strategy, and by the weight of duty. But the human had changed that. In ways she could neither fully explain nor control, Eric had entered her life and shifted her perspective. He had proven his loyalty, his courage, and his intellect. He had stood beside her when the court turned against him, and he had saved Cythera from disaster. In doing so, he had touched something deep within her, a spark she had thought long extinguished. In the aftermath of the coup, the court slowly returned to a semblance of normalcy. Advisors who had opposed Auric quietly resigned or were reassigned. The citizens, inspired by the human's bravery and ingenuity, celebrated him in the streets. The air of the city was electric, charged with a sense of new beginnings. Yet, even amid this, tension lingered. Many nobles still questioned the queen's fascination with an outsider, a human who had no bloodline, no claim, no previous ties to the great houses of Zathera. Xylaria called Eric to a private audience, away from the eyes of the court. The grand hall was empty, the crystal floors gleaming in the soft moonlight streaming through the windows. She regarded him with a calm, regal expression, but her heart raced. "You have done more than any other being could have done," she said. "You have proven your worth not through birthright or ambition, but through courage, intelligence, and honor. I see now that my judgment cannot be limited by species or tradition, and for that I am grateful." Eric inclined his head respectfully. "Your Majesty, I only acted as anyone with integrity should. I did not seek praise. My goal was to help, to stand with you. But knowing that I have earned your trust, that is enough." She stepped closer, the faint glow of the moons highlighting the sharp lines of her face. "For centuries I have refused every marriage, every union, believing that no one could meet the standards I set for myself for the throne. But you have surpassed any standard I have ever known. I do not offer this lightly, Eric, and I make no decision lightly. Yet I find myself wishing to unite with you, not for politics, not for duty, but for something more." Eric's eyes widened, not in disbelief, but in deep, quiet understanding. "Queen Xylaria, I am honored. I cannot claim to fully comprehend the weight of your offer, but I can promise this. I will stand beside you with every fiber of my being, not as a servant, not as an outsider, but as your equal and your partner. Together we will face the challenges of this world and others that lie beyond." The Queen studied him for a long moment. The court, the conspirators, the politics. All of it faded into insignificance. Here was a being who had faced danger, who had proven himself in ways no alien ever could. Here was a human who could stand as her equal, not by force, not by cunning, but by integrity, courage, and loyalty. She nodded slowly. "Then let it be so." Word of the Queen's decision spread quickly. The court reacted with a mixture of awe, fear, and admiration. Some nobles were shocked, struggling to accept that a human could hold such influence. Others were inspired, seeing a future where merit and character mattered more than tradition or lineage. Citizens celebrated in the streets, their voices rising in unison, heralding a new era for Zathera. Preparations began for the union not merely as a ceremony, but as a symbol of a new alliance, one that represented courage, intelligence, and mutual respect transcending the boundaries of species. The city buzzed with excitement, artisans and engineers collaborating to create a celebration worthy of the momentous occasion. Crystals were arranged to reflect the twin moons in intricate patterns, and floating lights traced paths above the streets, like stars in motion. On the day of the ceremony, the palace courtyard was filled with beings from across the galaxy, dignitaries, allies, and citizens alike. The crystal towers shimmered with a brilliance that seemed to echo the unity forming beneath them. Xylaria and Eric stood side by side on a platform that overlooked the city. He wore a formal uniform of human design, simple yet elegant, while she wore robes of shimmering violet crystal, tailored to reflect both power and grace. Xylaria raised her hand, signaling the start of the ceremony. Silence fell over the crowd. She spoke clearly, her voice carrying across the courtyard. Today I stand not only as the ruler of Zathira, but as one who chooses freely. I have chosen a partner who embodies courage, wisdom, and honor, a being from another world who has shown that love, respect, and trust are stronger than tradition or fear. Captain Eric Vance, do you accept this union? Eric stepped forward, his eyes meeting hers with unwavering determination. Queen Xylaria, I accept this union. I will stand with you, protect you, and work alongside you for the good of Zathira and all who dwell in our galaxy. I pledge my loyalty, my courage, and my heart. A hush fell over the crowd, followed by a swell of applause and cheers. It was a moment that would be remembered for generations. A human and an alien queen, united not by duty, but by choice, trust, and mutual admiration. The ceremony continued with rituals that combined human tradition and Zitharan culture. Crystals were placed in symbolic patterns, words of unity were spoken in multiple languages, and lights danced above the courtyard in celebration. But beyond the spectacle, the true significance lay in the bond forming between the two leaders. They had faced danger together, had overcome betrayal, and had come to respect and trust one another deeply. In private, after the formalities ended, Xylaria and Eric walked through the gardens once more. The twin moons cast long shadows over the floating streams and glowing plants. For a moment, the weight of the throne and the expectations of the court felt distant. You have changed everything, Xylaria said softly. Not just in my life, but in the way this world will see what is possible. You have shown that courage and honesty can alter even the deepest traditions. Eric smiled, taking her hand. And you have shown me what it means to lead, to protect, and to inspire. Together we are stronger than any challenge that might come. They stopped at the edge of a crystal overlook, gazing out over the city. The lights sparkled like stars, and the hum of the palace below was a comforting reminder that life continued, ever vibrant and ever changing. I never thought I would find this, Xylaria said, her voice quiet, not in anyone. Yet here you are. I never thought I would find someone like you, Eric replied, someone brave, intelligent, and unyielding. But here I am. And here we are. They stood together, hands intertwined, gazing over Zathira as a new era dawned. The city, the court, and the citizens all bore witness to a union that was not simply political, but deeply personal, a testament to courage, loyalty, and the power of trust across species. In that moment, Queen Xylaria realized that love, like leadership, was not bound by expectation or tradition. It was defined by choice, by action, and by the willingness to face the unknown together. And Captain Eric Vance understood that courage was not only in battle or strategy, but in the willingness to trust, to stand beside another, and to embrace a future that neither could have faced alone. The twin moons shone brightly over Zathira that night, reflecting in the crystal towers like beacons of hope and unity. For the first time in centuries, the queen, who had refused every marriage, stood not alone, but with a partner who matched her strength and courage. And for the human who had ventured into an alien world with nothing but honesty and bravery, the rewards were beyond expectation. A queen who trusted him, a bond that defied tradition, and a future filled with promise and adventure. As the night deepened, they walked through the quiet gardens, side by side, ready to face the challenges of the galaxy together. Their bond was stronger than politics, stronger than fear, and stronger than any force that might seek to divide them. In each other, they had found not only partnership, but understanding, respect, and a connection that transcended worlds. And in that unity, Zithra, the human, and the future itself all found something rare and extraordinary. A new era, built on courage, wisdom, and the simple, unyielding truth that trust and admiration can bridge even the vastest distances in the galaxy.